This is Dr. Jerome Corsi, and today it's Wednesday, it's December 20th, 2023. We're 5 days away from Christmas. Merry Christmas to everyone. And please, thank you for joining us. Please spread the word of truth, thetruthcentral.com, our website. We're doing podcasts every weekday. And you can find me on Twitter at Jerome Corsi 1. That's JeromeCorsi, or I guess it's Corsi Jerome 1, at Corsi Jerome, Jerome, all together, number 1. So at small letters, at Corsi Jerome 1 on Twitter. And I'll be posting more on Twitter throughout 2024. Thank you. First story today I want to cover is this Donald Trump was taken off of the primary ballot in Colorado in a court decision that was based on the 14th Amendment. Now, Colorado is one of the most woke states in the Union, leading on decriminalizing marijuana and other drugs and all the other woke agenda. So Colorado, which I've lived in for a while, was a beautiful state, just like Portland, Oregon, where I lived for a while. These are just getting wrecked by the Democrats, left and right. They're becoming Democratic hellholes, unfortunately. So this 4-3 decision by Democratic appointed judges said Trump cannot be on the Colorado primary presidential ballot because he, in their judgment, committed insurrection by supporting the January 9th Capitol incursion. And therefore, because of the 14th Amendment, which disqualifies people from holding public office if they were guilty of insurrection, and the Supreme Court's not going to go along with this. But the backstory here, I think, is extremely interesting because one of the judges, the woman judge, was former. She has a tie from her family tie to a company that sold out the United States by the story was covered over in the Liberty Daily. I thought it was pretty well covered. It's a complicated case, but this Colorado judge, her name is Judge Melissa Hart, is connected to the Archibald Cox family. Now, those who remember the Nixon Watergate, the special prosecutor Archibald Cox was fired on a Saturday night massacre, they called it, and Nixon fired him, and that caused a huge uproar and actually probably intensified the country's the decision to get rid of Nixon. Nixon ultimately resigned. He was not impeached. He resigned. So the granddaughter of Archibald Cox, who was the fired special prosecutor in Watergate, is a extreme woke leftist. Now, in the 1990s, Hart's uncle, who is Archibald Cox Jr., joined with George Soros in a deal that took a major U.S. manufacturing plant that was producing high-tech magnets from rare earth minerals for the Pentagon, and so Cox sold it to the Chinese. It was a complicated deal because the Chinese approached Cox to have one of his funds. He had a hedge fund at the time, 1990s, and the Sexton Group was founded by Archibald Cox Jr., and the Chinese company asked him to front for them. In other words, buy the company. This company was called Magna Quench, Magnequench. And this was a company that was using rare earth minerals to create magnets that were used in our J dams, some of these really massive bombs that the military uses, and they sold it to the Chinese. And even Hillary Clinton was objecting to it in 2008 when she was running for president. Ultimately, she, of course, did not get the nomination. Barack Obama did. But the point of this is that, again, China has cornered the market on rare earth minerals that are needed to manufacture many things, including weapons. And we now are seeing China's grab and hold of the rare earth minerals as part of China's strategy to conquer the world. It's unrestricted warfare. It's one of their, we'll cover it a little bit later because we're going to do a specific story on unrestricted warfare a bit later. But so two Chinese top officials approached Archibald Cox Jr. in the 1990s to use his hedge fund as a front for their companies to buy the U.S. rare earth magnet enterprise. They were successful, purchasing then moving the factory, the Indiana jobs, the patents, and the expertise to China. So then Cox, of course, got handsomely paid. He moved into a $12 million luxury New York residence. And the result is that the United States has entirely divested of a technology and market that we created and dominated just 30 years ago. China has a near complete monopoly on rare earth minerals, and the U.S. military, according to U.S. government studies, is now 100% dependent on China for the resources to produce our advanced weapon systems. Now, isn't that just great? And that's the judge, her family history, this judge, Melissa Hart, who was one of the 4 judges in the Colorado Supreme Court that yesterday reached a decision, 4-3 decision, that Donald Trump can't be on the ballot. Now, this is disgraceful. The Democratic Party wants to claim that they're for democracy. Oh, they're always for democracy. We want democracy. The democracy they want is called, they're social democrats. They want communism. They want Marxism. And it's astounding to me the Democratic Party has become a communist party. I've said this for years. They were moving in this direction. I did an ebook on this years ago. It's, I think, still available on Amazon, that China has dominated the Democratic agenda, and the Democrats are now in bed with China and hating Russia because Russia renounced communism when at the fall of the Berlin Wall. And before then, going back to 1917, the Democrats were in love with Russia because it was communist. Okay, so it's disgraceful that we actually have a generation in our universities raised to be woke, hating America, their heads filled with this nonsense about us being a racist nation because we had slaves. The Founding Fathers did not renounce their slaves. So the Founding Fathers created a constitution that was a racist constitution to preserve their white privileges. That's the story. It's all trash. Okay, forget about Lincoln's Gettysburg Address when he wrote the Declaration of Independence into the Constitution, essentially saying all human beings are created equal. Okay, so all men are created equal. And that redeclaration by Lincoln transformed the Civil War, which was not fought initially about slavery. It was fought about states' rights, into what ended up being a battle on slavery. And the amendments, 13th, 14th Amendments that came out of the Civil War, if you watched Spielberg's movie on Lincoln, what he didn't tell you is all the people in favor of not passing those amendments, not giving equal rights to black slaves, were Democrats. And yet the Democratic Party has voted for, blacks have voted for the Democratic Party for 200 years. I mean, this is ridiculous. The Republican Party in the time of the Civil War was the party of abolition and emancipation, not the Democrats. The Democrats were the slaveholders in the South. Lincoln was the first Republican, having left the Whig Party at that time in order to found the Republican Party. And the tradition of the party from the beginning was to end slavery, which we did. But rather than celebrate that, you have these communist histories of the United States being written, which say that we are an evil nation. And that's part of the methodology designed to destroy America. If you'll read my book, which I've just issued on the truth of, second book of this trilogy, first one, Truth About Energy, Global Warming, and Climate Change, indicating that all this global warming is a lie. It's not true science. The second book, The Truth About Neo-Marxism, Cultural Maoism, and Anarchy. Chris is showing you the covers. They're available on Amazon, and you can get them through the Truth Central website, clicking to Amazon. This is a important statement that they lie because they have subjective reality. And I show you how that's evolved philosophically over a couple hundred years. This woke has been in the works for a long time. And it is basically schizophrenia, and it's designed to be destructive. It is designed to destroy capitalism and depopulate, which is what these people are all about. Now, Donald Trump is going to take this to the Supreme Court, of course, and the 14th Amendment is not going to fly, I don't believe, with the Supreme Court to say that Donald Trump can be off of the ballot. This taking Donald Trump off the ballot is insanity. But again, look at what's going on in terms of the Democrats are totalitarians. They do not want freedom. They want control. They want submission. They want you to kneel to their woke agenda. And this is going to fail because what does the woke agenda mean? Okay, let's just ask some fundamental questions. Does every mother out there want their child going to a story hour with a transvestite reading the story? I mean, okay, so you get homosexuality and lesbianism packaged. They're just two people loving each other. Can't we let these little lovebirds alone? Yeah, well, that's the reality of homosexual sex is what's hid, and it can be brutal. So you get a gay parade and you get these guys lashing each other, walking in the streets about naked and sometimes actually naked, and saying that's okay. Is that what we want? Want people with gender confused, demonstrating their particular sexual fetishes in front of children? Is that where we've come to? In other words, ancient Rome turned Christian under Constantine. I've always asked myself why. Because ancient Rome was pagan. It at the end was indulging in massive orgies and all kinds of other bizarre behaviors. The emperors were partly crazy. The Roman Empire fell. But how did it go Christian? My answer to myself has been that the mothers got tired of seeing their children made into sexual perverts. When Christianity came around and it promised that here's God, here's moral values, let's build families, let's raise children to be moral creatures. The mothers said, that's for me. I didn't go spend 9 months being pregnant and go through childbirth to have this child come out and tell me he wants a sex change operation because some communist at school convinced him that was going to benefit him because his gender was different than his sex. Well, the person who proposes that ought to be the person who goes into psychiatry as a patient, not as a doctor. And celebrating these various sexual weirdnesses is not the same as tolerating them for those few who would naturally engage in these. There's always been some historically, maybe 1 or 2% of all humans, but it is not common and celebrated. If it becomes such, the society itself becomes corrupted. And we get decisions like, it's okay for Joe Biden to be in the White House with his son stealing money all over the place. It's okay for Hillary Clinton to be Secretary of State and have her private email server so she can run Clinton Foundation business, collecting billions from oligarchs around the world who have evil intentions and enacting their wishes as her State Department policy, which includes insanity like getting Ukraine into NATO, Finland and Sweden into NATO, Let's just surround Russia with NATO and expect Russia to do nothing. It's again, you're poking the bear. And the idea is that a nation state's going to have a sphere of influence. It's going to have border protection. Russia has not been attacking Eastern Europe or Ukraine or Finland since the fall of the Berlin Wall, until Hillary Clinton, George Soros, the State Department decided they were going to push NATO down Putin's throat. A bad idea. Okay, let's move on to the next story. There's a massive volcano that's erupted in Iceland. And again, this is the second. There was one, I believe, in 2010 that also shut down Iceland, shut down air travel. Now, this is a volcano that is massive. It sent plumes into the air, massive plumes into the air of up to 330 feet into the air. Now, how much energy does it take to send fountains of lava shooting up 330 feet into the air? That's a massive force. This is bubbling out molten lava at a massive level and releasing toxic gas. Now, again, this is what destroyed Pompeii, and the ancient Roman city that's now being excavated and has been being excavated for a couple hundred years. And it was covered in a volcano, and the people died, mostly from the toxic gas from Mount Vesuvius that erupted. And again, these are not minor forces. At the same time, we also had an earthquake in China, 6.2 earthquake in China, that killed some 100 people so far, probably will kill more when the totals are taken. These are earth changes that have nothing to do with a little bit more carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. It is absolutely insanity to think that a molecule, carbon dioxide, which is 0.04% of all molecules in the atmosphere, is causing volcanoes and is causing earthquakes, is causing El Nino to rise in the Pacific Ocean. These are massive forces. Earth has been around 4.6 billion years. Carbon dioxide is not a major global warming chemical. It's not. Water vapor is 70% of all greenhouse gases. So this is the idea. And by the way, if we didn't have greenhouse gases, the Earth would probably not be inhabitable, because the fundamentals that you're not taught at school, why is it night? I bet if you asked that question to a group of high school students, they couldn't explain it to you today, because they're not being taught anything. The Earth revolves. When we revolve away from the sun, it's night, it's dark. Sun's not shining. Sun is our major source of heat and warmth on this planet, and light. And at night, the irradiance that the Earth absorbs from the sun would escape back into the upper atmosphere and outer space, and we would be too cold to live on Earth without having greenhouse gases that trap some of the irradiance and keep the Earth at least partially warmer in night. When the Earth is experiencing a hotter sun, we have a little warming period, as we did in the medieval warming period. When it's cooler, we have a little ice age, like we did when Napoleon was around and his troops all froze to death coming out of Moscow. These are fundamental forces that are beyond human ability to control. We are the species that Earth, 4.6 billion years, 80% of Earth's history, nothing lived on the surface of the Earth. It's the last 20%. We've had 4 major extinctions before human beings ever arrived. So we didn't cause those because we weren't here. Pretty simple to understand. And the point is that as far as the Earth is concerned, we're just the latest creatures walking on its surface. The Earth's temperature is not designed to suit us. The Earth's temperature and climate works to distribute heat that hits at the equator, to the upper atmosphere, and to the poles. That's why weather creates the movement of heat around the planet, tries to distribute the heat a little bit more evenly. So therefore we have climate and we have weather patterns, which, climate is just patterns of weather. But yet this insanity is going to blame human beings as being the cause of the global warming. And finally, with the failure of the COP28 in Dubai, the world is realizing that the climate change agenda is a Marxist agenda designed to get us to quit using hydrocarbon fuels, which they know and intend will kill billions of people because they want to depopulate. The whole goal of the World Economic Forum, the New World Order crowd, is to have the oligarchs like Bill Gates take over everything and have all the resources of the earth to themselves. They'll reduce the population from 8 billion down to about 500 million. And they'll run the earth as transhumanism, combining themselves with machines, building calculators into their brains with machines and producing food with machines. They don't envision working, but since they don't need 8 billion people and they don't want to feed 8 billion people, the idea is just get rid of them. Of course, they don't want to get rid of themselves. And they self-appoint themselves into the oligarchy, and the stealing of money, the massive billions that are accumulated by Gates and others, is then replicated by allowing the politicians like Biden corruption that they can have their share. It's not going to be billions, but it's going to be hundreds of millions. And the whole goal is to keep Ukraine functioning so as to preserve the money laundering capabilities of Ukraine. It's a massive racket. And our Justice Department goes along with it as our FBI takes a knee to Black Lives Matter. Chris, you want to comment on this?
And don't forget blaming cows for all of this as well, and dairy farmers. Another way to starve out the population, I suppose, right?
Well, just kill, and then they say, well, the farmers object to having all their cows killed. They say, well, what we'll do is we'll just income enhance. We'll pay the farmers to let us kill the cows. Well,
the problem is without the cows, okay? Without the cows and providing all the dairy and good stuff we need, where would poor old Joe Biden get his ice cream from? I mean, he'd be very upset if there were no cows. I don't think he's going to want to eat the fake tofu ice cream now, is he? Even though he might just be told that's what it is.
I'm sure Bill Gates can make ice cream out of worms, so why not? Why not do that?
Roach cream. There we go.
Roach cream.
Yes.
Okay, so I want to cover that story. Maybe we'll just jump to that right now because there actually is a peer-reviewed study published. Climate Depot is covering it today, and this genius study published in a peer-reviewed journal says that because human breathing contributes to global warming, because we exhale carbon dioxide, and so therefore the statistician Dr. Matt Briggs, the first question that came to mind when I read this breathtaking research was, how could people be this stupid? It's been shown for quite a while that human beings exhale carbon dioxide. The amounts we exhale were also on the books. Ask any doctor who graduated before the woke struck medical schools. You can't stop people from breathing. No, but you can get rid of people. I can get rid of cows. So now we're in the Anthropocene, which is a Marxist term for the epoch, the geologic epoch we're in. And the Anthropocene, anthropos in Greek, ancient Greek and modern Greek means human being. So what they want to do is they want to say we are the cause of our own destruction. So to continue with the statistician Matt Briggs, he said, quote, could it really be that these academic experts want to reduce the surplus population to cut down breathing and save us from the ravages of global warming, now called climate change? But the story does say, and published, and this is in a scientific peer-reviewed journal, that humans are fueling global warming by just breathing. For the study, the researchers investigated the emissions of methane and nitrous oxide in human breath from 104 adult volunteers in the UK. So now researchers are saying breathing is bad for the environment. Gases we exhale contribute to 0.1% of the UK's greenhouse gases. But yet in going to net zero, they have to eliminate human beings. So the insanity is that this whole movement, Neo-Marxism, all they can do is destroy. And ultimately they say, we are the cause of our own destruction. So their solution is, why don't you all just do us a favor and kill yourselves? Let's have euthanasia be endorsed for anybody who wants it.
By their logic, the Boston Strangler was good for the environment. He was helping the planet.
Yeah, he was reducing the population. And so, all these things that reduce population are to the Klaus Schwabs of the world and the Hararis, who's one of his major advisors and pundits. We don't need all these. The Earth would be great except for the people. Just get rid of the people, it'll be just fine. It's insanity. It's self-loathing. But they loathe human beings, but want to elevate themselves to this transhuman level. We've seen it before. Nietzsche, Übermensch, Hitler. These are ideas which cause world wars, cause genocide. And these ideas are what the universities are teaching today. I don't think human beings are the problem. I think the neo-Marxism, cultural Maoism is the problem. And cultural Maoism now dominates our media. And the CIA is in on it, as well as all the other agencies that want to regulate Twitter so we don't publish truth. And the EU, they want to now block Twitter because Twitter does publish truth. And they're going to say that it's hate speech and disinformation. And they're going to try to shut Twitter down in the UK, maybe the EU, which will be the beginning of shutting off the internet, except for what the government wants you to be able to use it for. And that is to monitor everything you do, including how much you breathe, how much energy you use in your home. They want kill switches on cars. Well, if someone's drunk, we have to have a kill switch. Well, if we don't like their social posts on Twitter, we use the kill switch. They can't turn on their car. They can't turn on their money. They can't leave their house because we have, controls in the house now that monitor everything. We can lock all the doors, lock all the windows. 15-minute cities, you can't go beyond that, or else your cell phones don't work. Nothing works. You can't access your money because it's all digital. These are all dystopian ideas. And I think these ideas are going to fail once people realize where the New World Order is headed. The Klaus Schwabs of the world, the first people they will eliminate are the woke, because they won't be able to tolerate any more dissent and disruption once they have totalitarian control. The woke are just useful idiots destroying God, destroying families in order for them to gain control. Chris, I'm going to move on to a couple more stories. You want to comment on this so far?
Well, as you say, the woke destroy, but the woke also, no, they haven't created a darn thing. If you think about it, it's just like the old fairy tales. Good creates, evil destroys. Cultural Maoism, as you talked about, destroyed the long, rich history, by the way, of China. They tried to just get rid of the whole thing, make sure that the younger generations don't know enough about it. We're doing that here in this country. We're not doing it the same way by force. In America, the leadership here is dumbing the curriculum down. So really, the nation doesn't know, or the younger generations will not know much about the revolution, the Civil War, what happened right afterward, and of course, worst of all, the Holocaust. A lot of there were surveys out that say younger people from the millennial and millennial generation and Generation Z, less and less of them understand or even know about the Holocaust.
Well, yeah, and we are doing it violently too. The Black Lives Matter, painting streets and
by proxy,
tearing down statues, and we're not quite yet at burning libraries, but that'll be next.
The Biden administration says that Iran is responsible for the Houthi attacks. The Houthi are representing Iran by proxy. I kind of believe that. BLM representing them by proxy. BLM is representing the Biden administration.
Black Lives Matter is a Maoist organization, and the founders of it are living in mansions.
Right.
It's the communist formula.
Yes, the equity-loving, mansion living socialists.
These people are all for social justice as long as they can live in their mansions, and Biden can steal billions of dollars from, or hundreds of millions of dollars from around the world, enriching his drugged son with his bizarre sexual habits that he likes to put on his laptop, which he forgets at a repair shop. I mean, these are the guys who are running the country.
Oh, think about it. At least they're not. At least he didn't film it and make it public.
Then they lie
on the congressional floor.
Even Lindsey Graham, who must be one of my least favorite senators of all time, is saying that the Biden story that he did not know about Hunter's business activities, that narrative is wearing thin. All these narratives are wearing thin. Climate change narrative has been rejected by anybody with any smarts. It's been rejected by governments which understand that China and India are going to burn more coal than ever historically and lie about it. Say, oh, we're going to go to net zero. We'll go to net zero in 2050 or maybe 20 never. But right now we're going to burn coal because it's a transitional fuel. We're transitioning by using hydrocarbon fuels. And by the way, they're not fossil fuels. I put this out in several books. In the 2024, I'll create a book called Abiotic Oil and explain it to people once again. Oil's abundant. We'll probably never run out of it because by the time we've used a good deal of it, there's still more. It's being generated all the time on an ongoing basis by the earth, the mantle of the earth, and we'll move to other fuels.
The way I see the net zero and the whole carbon-free lifestyle agenda is a way for the left to stay in power. They know it's not going to happen. They just say, well, we're going to make this a beautiful world. It's sort of like when you're trying to progress here in real life. You're trying to bring trying to bring realism back to the debate. And all of a sudden, the wicked, like in The Wizard of Oz, the Wicked Witch of the West throws a bunch of poisonous opium-filled poppy seeds in the middle of the field to distract them or pretty much make them fall asleep. And that's where this whole, be kind to the planet, climate change, and get rid of the cows because because carbon dioxide and nitrogen are terrible things, even though they're kind of building blocks of the atmosphere and life here.
Well, let's apply a biblical principle. Judge it by the fruits of the tree. And if you want to live the way these people want you to live, you're as crazy as they are.
Don't trust a talking snake.
Don't trust a talking snake. That's a good one.
That's the one I talk. That's when people say, well, Adam Schiff said. I always say, well, don't trust a talking snake.
Go back and read Genesis to look at the talking snake. Okay, let's go. Let's move on here to conclude with a couple of stories. Israel's pressing the war into Hamas by going into Southern Gaza. And there's a good article on this today on the Gateway Pundit, actually, this is coming out of the New York Times. The New York Times was saying, what's the Hamas strategy? Kill or wound more Israeli soldiers to weaken Israeli support for the war, ensure that civilian deaths in Gaza increase international pressure on Israel, make sure Hamas uses civilians as shields, so the Israelis kill more civilians, make sure they operate out of hospitals, Hamas, so the Israel army can't get them unless they go in, and there'll be civilian casualties in the hospital, so they can say Israel's killing hospitalized Muslims who have done no harm, well, they're being used as shields by Hamas in order to get them killed. You want to follow Hamas? Hamas is another bloodthirsty organization that cares nothing for human beings, except for their own little cowardly selves. Okay, so Israel's strategy, finish taking control of Hamas's remaining strongholds in northern Gaza and begin to assert the same degree of control over the south. Okay, remain flexible and keep the United States from imposing a strict limit on how long the war is going to be allowed to last. See, these are the tensions. The world begins to know that Hamas is going to be destroyed. The Israeli army is capable of doing it. So immediately, Hamas and Iran run to the United Nations and start crying about civilians, which they have calculated to get killed in order to end Israel's destruction of Hamas before Hamas is completely destroyed. What Hamas wants and what Iran wants right now is a ceasefire to stop Israel from eradicating the Gaza of terrorists that want to kill Jews. And after the October 7th horror show of the massive brutality and barbarism with which the Hamas terrorists, cowards, killed helpless Jews who were unarmed because of the left again taking their weapons away. Okay, so here we have I think Netanyahu is just going to pursue it, not care really what the United Nations says. And I believe he's got the capacity to eliminate Hamas. Some of these tunnels are massive tunnels. You could take armored vehicles through these tunnels. The tunnels underneath Gaza that Hamas has dug will allow an army to suddenly emerge on Israel's border and attack Israel because it was put together and traveled through this tunnel system. Israel will destroy the tunnel system and at least set back Hamas. But there's no solution to this when Hamas is dedicated to destroy Israel and kill Jews. As long as that's the stated goal of Hamas and their terror masters in Iran, and Hezbollah, also a surrogate organization of the Iranian mullahs, this whole idea of kill Jews and eliminate Israel offers no solution. Two-state solution would just be buying time, and Hamas would be happy to take that time. Okay, and one more story I want to cover today, and just quickly, pull it up. The whole China Unrestricted Warfare, it's a very excellent article. This is the one that's on the Gatestone Institute. It was written by Lawrence Franklin, who was the desk officer for Secretary of Defense Rumsfeld, the Iran desk. He ran the Iran desk. And he served active duty with U.S. Army and a colonel in the Air Force Reserve. And what he's writing today is, I think, something that should be paid attention to. So the Communist Party, under Xi Jinping's leadership, has over the years, by espionage, intellectual property theft, hacking, spying, militarizing artificial islands, they've initiated a conflict between China and the U.S. by taking over the South China Sea. And they want to neutralize states that might challenge its claim, not only to the South China Sea, but to the world. Because rather than fight a war, China is hoping to envelop the U.S. in Latin America by establishing Chinese-controlled ports and numerous bilateral Belt and Road Initiative projects in Cuba, Panama, Venezuela, Nicaragua, Brazil, and Argentina. And China is controlling rare earth minerals in Africa. China is systematically buying the world. It's now I wrote a book in 2011, America for Sale, when I foresaw this strategy was going to be implemented, and our politicians like Biden and Hillary Clinton would be happy to sell out the national security interests of the United States for money. And that once that was realized, China could print up enough money to buy the entire Congress. Mitch McConnell married to Elaine Chao, her family in China. That family would not be able to live with the millions that they now possess if Mitch McConnell wasn't conscious of China's interests in the U.S. Senate. That's just a fact of life. So that China is systematic, and is the United States ready? I mean, we're allowing all this to happen. Our politicians are, when you have the government bought by China and the Department of Justice prosecuting Donald Trump, I mean, how messed up is this? This is corruption beyond belief. And then you tell the people, don't breathe because you're causing climate change. I mean, sometimes reporting these stories, is the world really this insane? Have everybody really lost their minds to this extent? Well, my conclusion is this is what happens when you take God out of the equation. Satan has a field day, and Satan is the prince of lies. And every story we reported today has at its heart a lie. And we have become a nation that does not know the difference between truth and lie. C.S. Lewis warned us about this. when he was writing that once everything becomes subjective, in other words, there is no universal truth. So therefore, what the difference between Nazism and the Constitution, the United States, well, they're just equally constructed subjective narratives. This is what I cover in the book about Neo-Marxism, cultural Maoism, and anarchy. You got to understand that they live in a different world in which there's no truth. There's nothing objective reality. So therefore, anything you want it to be, you can imagine it being, and then because that's your reality, everybody has to accept it. So therefore, you think you're a Chinese cat that lived 3 centuries ago, and your sex is different than your gender. So you may have male or female sex organs, but you think you're the other. And you like to wear the clothes of the other and modify your body to be the other sex because that will now match your gender. So, you are, and so in this cross-sectionality, you get more points depending upon how many oppressions you can have. So let's start out, you're black. Well, that's one. Now you're a black woman. Now we're doing cross-sectionality because you've got 2. So you're a black woman, lesbian. Now you got 3. And how about your black woman, lesbian, Muslim? Now you got 4. I mean, you're really up there in the DEI chain. You're ascending to heaven on this subjective. It's insanity. It's schizophrenia. These people ought to be institutionalized. Yet, it's what our universities are teaching. So Barack Obama says, let's make all tuition loans from the government. Now the government's just pumping money into the universities, letting them expand with their neo-Marxist agenda. What it produces is anarchy. That was the goal. Because anarchy destroys God, destroys family, destroys nations. And these people like George Soros are nation destroyers. Chris, any final comments? We're going to wrap up for today.
What they're doing right now when they're pushing all these agendas here, and they're pushing this, as we see, evil agenda, it's wrapped up in a pretty package, like Barack Obama, and that's where I'm going here. It's more, if something's pleasing to the eyes, it becomes pleasing to the ears and the brain for many people, especially if the education system has been dumbed down the last 40 years. We're a celebrity-oriented society, so if you can push these things through celebrity or through, as I said, a pretty package, it becomes a little bit more acceptable by the masses, which isn't good for the rest of us fighting, because it's like somebody on one side is selling candy while the other side is selling vegetables.
Well, the gold today is trading at $2,047 an ounce. And get a copy of this free book. I mean, the free book is, I think, essential. One of our sponsors, Dean Heskin, co-authored it with me. He's the president of Swiss America. The coming global crash will create an historic gold rush. You get the free book. Swiss America will mail it to you by calling toll-free 1-800-519-6268. Write it down, 1-800-519-6268. If you go on our homepage and look at the sponsors and click down Swiss America, Chris will show you how to navigate it. You go up to the top and where it says sponsors, you click down and get to Swiss America. There is a Walking Liberty $50 offer. Fill out the form. This is a one-time offer. You get up to 250 of these coins. They are over 90% actual silver, which makes them valuable because the price of silver is probably going to accelerate at a faster rate than gold. And what this book points out is that we're going through an energy crisis brought on largely by the net zero nonsense. And we're going through a debt crisis. They'll try to prop everything up through 2024 to keep Biden viable. Of course, Biden is hardly able to remember these days where he is. At any rate, they want him to be president, which is insanity. Protect yourself with getting some actual gold and silver. It'll appreciate in value. When your purchasing power, your dollar begins to, again, be worth less and less in terms of the goods and services you can buy with a dollar. Yet they'll say inflation's under control. Well, the Federal Reserve's just given up trying to manage inflation. And now they want to pump up the economy. There's also various publications you can get from Swiss America. It's a very rich resource, and Swiss America is consultative selling. It's legitimate. I've been working with them for over 20 years. And all of these issues we're covering, if you like the show, support our sponsors as well. You've got My Vital C, which I'm taking every day. It's a miracle molecule. We're going to be promoting again this book next year, Live Longer and Better, which I've written with Chris Burries, who is the co-founder of myvitalc.com. They manufacture the best quality carbon 60 under these My Vital C products. I'm 77 years old. I decided not to retire. I'm going to be more active than ever in 2024. But I do say that the carbon 60 has revitalizing capabilities. You should try it. We're broadcasting in many different stations now. You can see in the right-hand corner, people are saying, I don't find you on YouTube. Well, YouTube puts us in jail if we say the wrong thing.
But we're back on YouTube, actually.
For 2 days. I think this is the second day we'll be back on.
Yes, we just got back on.
It's the second time they've taken us off, by the way.
I do want to say, if you can't find us on YouTube, you can always find us on this website, thetruthcentral.com. We're on Rumble, as far as the videos are concerned. Our video is also played on X. Our video is also played on BitChute, on CloudHub. We're going to be expanding that as well. We're also on several audio outlets. People listen to us, and the audio podcast is really expanding, likely because YouTube's kicking us off all the time. You can find us on iHeartRadio, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, PodTrack, Podbean, TuneIn, Spreaker, Amazon Music, and of course, you can ask your Alexa for the Truth Central with Dr. Jerome Corsi.
Thank you, Chris. Let's wrap up. In the end, God always wins. God's going to win here too. And I'm confident that God created the human race to succeed. And it will be, again, historic when we defeat this evil of the Neo-Marxism and cultural Maoism and reject anarchy. Like the Roman Republic, we can come back to God. The solution here is 2 Chronicles 7:14. We need to get on our knees and ask God's forgiveness for taking God out of our schools, starting in the 1940s, out of our hearts, out of our marriages, butchering babies in the womb, cutting them to pieces. These are barbaric, satanic acts. And you can put up a statue of Satan, but you can't have the 10 Commandments in a public square. This will end, because I think people in the United States, when they realize they're being architected into slavery, will reject this agenda and are rejecting the agenda. We're not turning out the lights. We're going to use hydrocarbon fuels. They are natural to the earth. They do not destroy us. We're going to continue breathing. This is not the Anthropocene. As far as the earth is concerned, human beings may go away, but the earth now is producing life. And God can unplug this anytime God decides to unplug this experiment. And I believe we will get through this dark period, and we'll see a light at the end of it that will make it much harder for evil to have this ascendancy again. This is Dr. Jerome Corsi. Today is Wednesday, December 20th, 2023. TheTruthCentral.com. We're doing podcasts every weekday. Thank you for joining us. God bless.